Power to the truth. This is Margo. This is Wednesday, March 20th, 2019, 4:11 p.m. Pacific Time, United States of America. So, we've got another full show today. We've got new methane data from CAMS. They skipped Thursday. They had it up for a little while, but then when I came this afternoon to get set up for the show, now Thursday is gone from last week. So the only data we have is from Friday, March the 15th of last week. So we'll take what we've got, and I've got the Arctic view loaded up here with surface level, and I already have the movie started or ready to go. So here's where it ended at the end of Thursday then, with a large release coming out of the Kara Sea to the east of Novaya Zemlya. We saw more building up here in Russia and down here in Russia and over here in Norway and further down. We also saw more release coming out of the Chukchi Sea here. So let's run this movie and see what happens here. As it goes into the forecast period, you can see more red and orange release out of this Chukchi Sea that we started seeing a few days ago, but I really don't remember seeing that before like that, right in the middle of the Arctic like that. So that's in the forecast period for Saturday and Sunday. And then there's release and building and releasing and building, and it's just this cycle, and it just goes in waves here across the land with it being surface level. So there it is at the end of the forecast period, which would be Tuesday, yesterday the 19th. I also have the North Pole view pulled up. I don't know why I'm so hoarse all of a sudden, but I just am. So, kind of squeaking. I apologize. So, on this North Pole view, we can see the northern hemisphere, and so let's run this movie and we can get a bigger view of what's going on. We're seeing a lot of release off the west coast of California here and Baja, Mexico. We're seeing pockets of large release in Canada and here in Washington, and just peppered around through the western states, and then more solid in the eastern states because they're more humid than we are, and they got all that rain too. And we also have large release. It's actually coming out of the Indian Ocean now. We've seen that before as it gets warm. So, of course, we've seen this as a pattern with large release from India, especially northern India, China, and Asian territories over there. Also coming out of the Pacific Ocean here too, off the coast, off that eastern coast of China. Look at that and it's really, really spreading out there. See, especially in the forecast period there. So we're gonna pause that. we're gonna look at sulfur dioxide in a little bit here. It has to do with one of my lead stories. So I thought I'd but before we get into the stories, I thought I'd show Climate Reanalyzer for the 2-meter temperature anomaly so that you can kind of see where we're at temperature-wise around the world, and that determines methane level release too. The warmer it is, the more the methane is going to be being released. So we have northern Canada is in the red zone, and into the Arctic and the Chukchi Sea there, it's in the brown zone, and then the brown zone coming on down through northern Canada. Also over Svalbard, and that area is brown. When we come on around, we see northern Africa's in the brown, and different parts of these Middle Eastern countries are all brown. And then when we see Russia, and look at this Yamal Peninsula, it's all brown, and right next to it is in the red zone, and that's where we see very high levels of methane being released a lot of the time. And then here's the Laptev Sea that's got brown over it, and this is air temperature. And then over here in China, and then China comes on up here too, north of Korea. And then Japan, it looks like, is all in the brown. So this is the first day of spring, so parts of the Antarctic are in the brown. Most of New Zealand's in the brown, especially the southern island. Most of Australia is in the brown. Some is brown, more brown than other parts. Now up here on this York Peninsula is where we're tracking that Cyclone Trevor, and we can see that that's not in the brown, and it's moving across that peninsula right now. We're going to do a follow-up on that too. So let's just go ahead and look at this cyclone. Unfortunately, this big black slash where they try to flatten out the view and they cut out part of the data happens to go right through our cyclone that we're trying to look at. Here it was yesterday where it was making landfall, and here it is where it's moving across, and it looks like it's spreading out. The arms of it are spreading out. So let me get my stories for that. We'll go ahead and cover that first because I want to spend quite a bit of time on this other thing that I've been wanting to bring to you, that I've been researching. So this is from The Guardian, and this is from yesterday, and it's Cyclone Trevor, far north Queensland areas face days without power, trees and power lines torn down across Cape York, while re-intensifying storms threaten to hit Northern Territory. So there's that picture. That looks like from yesterday. 2 remote far north Queensland communities could be completely without electricity for days after Cyclone Trevor tore down trees and power lines. The entire communities of Lockhart River and Cohen were without power on Wednesday morning, as residents began to emerge from their homes to access the damage. And so on. It's weakened. It was a Category 3 when it hit land. Now it's weakened to a Category 1. But as it approaches the Gulf of Carpentaria, it's going to pick up steam. Roads and schools remain closed across the Cape, and residents are reminded not to risk driving on flooded roads. So I'll leave that link below. That's a follow-up story. I also have another follow-up story in case anyone wants to see it or go to it. There are actually some good videos. This is 9news.com out of the AU, out of Australia. So this is from their neck of the woods. So there's a movie, a video of Trevor moving through, and there's some of the damage. Look at those trees that just came down. That's awful. So it was a powerful storm, and they're just now starting to assess the damage, and in certain parts of the community. So here's another picture of it. So this is where it's coming now down across the Cape or the Gulf, and here it is on March the 20th, and see, it's here is as a Category 1, and then by 2 p.m. they're saying it's going to be a Category 2, and then by 7 a.m. on the 21st they're anticipating it to be a Category 3, and then it's going to go up to a Category 4 and maybe a Category 5 before it hits landfall down here. So it's moving across and going to hit down here. So that's what this is showing. So they're not out of the woods yet. This is a double punch for them. So we'll keep tracking this and keep saying prayers for these people, because this is a really bad storm. And they're not out of the woods yet. So there's those. And now I'd like to go to my lead story. And this is from the New York Times. Mexican volcano lights up the night sky in social media. And here's a picture in the background from Mexico, from the volcano Popocatepetl. On Saturday, seen from Puebla, Mexico, it had a large eruption Monday night. And it's been erupting since then too. So Popocatepetl, it's hard for me to say it anyway, the active volcano that rises some 40 miles southeast of the Mexican capital, exploded Monday night, sending a plume of ash and gas more than 2 miles into the inky sky and raining glowing rocks onto its slopes. It was more than 3 miles. It was more than 3 miles high. Video released by Mexico's National Disaster Prevention Agency showed a fiery light at the volcano's crater at 9:38 p.m. The explosion was quickly enveloped in ash and pulverized rock as burning fragments of the volcano's dome fell over a radius over a mile and a half. So here's the video. Watch this. Look at that. I'm going to play it again. Here we go. So see, here's the molten lava coming down. So that was quite the blast on Monday. Popocatepetl, whose name means smoking mountain in Nahuatl, the language of the Aztecs, sprang back to life in 1994 after a half-century of quiescence. Since then, the residents of the surrounding towns have grown accustomed to frequent emissions of gas and ash and periodic eruptions. Over the past few weeks, the volcano has become more active, prompting the authorities to repeat warnings to keep a distance of about 7 miles away from the summit. And then I looked at Volcano Discovery, and here's their page on it and a map of where it's located, and here are all the advisories that they've done. So here's information about it. I also typed in on Google Earth Mexico volcanoes, and so they show up in a band all the way across here. We have 8 or 9 right along here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then there are 2 more down here. So there are 9. But Popocatepetl, or Catepetl, however you say it, is right down here. It's massive. It's 17,000 feet tall. So this is the crater of it. When you look in, it's got different layers of the crater. Look at that. And then we want to fly to it. We'll get a different view. And here you can see it kind of moving around there. And that's snow on the top because it's so tall. It's always got some snow up there. So there's that. It's a majestic mountain. So let's read about it. Popocatepetl is one of Mexico's most active volcanoes. After almost 50 years of dormancy, Popo came back to life in 1994 and has since then been producing powerful explosions at irregular intervals. In the past centuries before European invasions, large eruptions produced giant mudflows that have buried Aztec settlements, even entire pyramids. Volcan Popocatepetl, whose name is the Aztec word for smoking mountain, towers to 5,426 meters, 70 kilometers southeast of Mexico, to form North America's second highest volcano. The glacier-clad stratovolcano contains a steep-walled 250 to 450 meter deep crater. The generally symmetrical volcano is modified by the sharp-peaked Ventorio on the northwest, a remnant of an earlier volcano. At least 3 previous major cones were destroyed by gravitational failure during the Pleistocene, producing massive debris avalanche deposits covering broad areas south of the volcano. The modern volcano was constructed to the south of the late Pleistocene to Holocene Frail cone. 3 major Plinian eruptions, the most recent of which took place about 800 AD, have occurred from Popocatepetl since the mid-Holocene, accompanied by pyroclastic flows and voluminous lahars that swept basins below the volcano. Frequent historical eruptions, first recorded in Aztec codices, have occurred since pre-Columbian time. So here's a picture. Let's look at that. Look at that. Isn't that something? That's from May of 2013. At the bottom it says, Popocatepetl is one of Mexico's most active volcanoes and also part of an Aztec legend. A warrior who fell in love with a young woman. It's to see Waddle, who died while he was away in battle. He is said to be still mourning for her. Popocatepetl is located more or less 40 miles southeast of Mexico City. So, then if you want to look at reports, you can click here, They have the volcanic ash advisory. Here's the one that says that it was to 20,000 feet. This is from today. So it says Popocatepetl volcanic ash advisory to 20,000 feet or 6,100 meters. This is from today. Explosive activity continues. Volcanic Ash Advisory Center, Washington, warned about a volcanic ash plume that rose up to estimated 20,000 feet altitude or flight level 200. The full report is as follows. So this is actually from yesterday at 3:56 UTC time. So there's the full report, and then other reports are listed at the bottom, and let's see, here's one from Sunday the 17th. Here's an ash plume that rose to 22,000 feet. Eruption to an ash plume to 22,000 feet. That happened on the 19th at 5:38 UTC time. So it's been erupting and it's been picking up, and so here's what I wanted to show you now. on cams, this is sulfur dioxide. I have it on Sunday here. This is that area, and we always see red coming out there, and I say, oh, that's volcanoes in Mexico. Well, this is what it is, so I thought we'd just do a little lesson here. Now this is left over from Bezimiani from the Kamchatka Peninsula that we saw earlier this week. So we're not looking at that red plume, we're looking down here in Mexico. So from Sunday, if we run that movie for Sunday, you can see it erupting. It's not here it is into the forecast period on Monday. But you know, it doesn't have that big exclamation point. So I think it just depends on how much of the sulfur dioxide and stuff is being released into the atmosphere. Here it is on Monday. Now we can see a release there. And then now, because I like to look at the day with the data rather than just into the forecast period, because we have more accurate information. So here it is from Tuesday. And see, it's releasing again. See, now you can see it spreading out. And then here it is from today. And see, it's bigger today. Sometimes we can see it a lot bigger than this, but we always see this releasing. It's been active pretty much ever since I've been looking at sulfur dioxide on cams. So there it is into the forecast period for tomorrow, with really red down there. So there's that. So I will leave that as a backdrop. So I thought that was interesting and wanted to show that to people. Since we talk about these volcanoes and earthquakes and things, we needed a little history lesson there, and I didn't know about it, and I'd never really looked into it before now. But that is quite the mountain, and you can see the lava flows where they've come down on past explosions and then they've frozen. Look at that. Let's see what Wikipedia might say that we don't know already. 17,802 feet. It's the second highest peak in Mexico. So that's just something else. That just blows my mind. So we'll leave that link in the show notes as well. Now, as we get into earthquakes, okay, I'm going to close that out. And I'm going to close this out. And now we're going to get into earthquakes, and it has been busy. Busy, busy, busy. Super busy. And I've got one article from Sputnik News concerning an earthquake that rocked Turkey this morning. It was first recorded as a 6.4 magnitude earthquake on Wednesday in Turkey, but the USGS has downgraded it. I think they have it as a 5.7. So here's what we've got over here at Turkey on USGS. We've got this 5.7, and that's at the same time that they had in the article near Ossipayam, Turkey. It was Pacific time. It was 11:34 last night. So if you add 7 hours to that, that'd be 6:34 in the morning, 6:34 UTC time. So that's or Greenwich Mean Time. So that was that earthquake. Ossipayam, located 123 kilometers from the city of Antalya. And at the same time, the Turkish earthquake monitor has reported 5-point magnitude shakes. So, and if you look at EMSC, which is the European website, they show quite a few earthquakes here. They've shown a lot of aftershocks. They've shown 2.7s, a lot of 3s, and they're just all lined up there. So that's where those are. And also France got hit, and normally USGS doesn't report on France, but so anyway, before we go over to France, so after this 5.7, then there was a 4.3 near Golisar at 10:42 this morning, Pacific time. So there's the ones that are reported by USGS, and then they reported a 3.9 near Montendre, France. I know I butchered that, but anyway, I'm from Texas. What can I say? This was at 2:56 this morning, and there was France actually had it was a 5.0, and then they had all these little aftershocks after that. And so the 5.0 in France got downgraded to a 3.9 on USGS. So here's the 5.0 in France that happened at 9:56 UTC time. And then there was a 3.1 at 10:29 UTC time, UTC time from France. And there were more, but this list doesn't cover the really smaller ones. But look at all of these down in Mexico and a lot in Turkey. So if you want to see some other earthquakes that are not being picked up on USGS, you can certainly come over to EMSC and then look through there too. And we can see there are earthquakes throughout the Mediterranean here. And then if you want to look at worldwide, you click there, and that's what EMSC is showing worldwide. So let's hop back over to USGS. First of all, we're showing 236 earthquakes of all magnitudes worldwide in the last 24 hours. Of those, we're showing 37 that are 2.5 magnitude and higher. So let's see what's going to come off the map soon. Okay, all of these, none of these happen until 6/11, so we're okay. So I can start wherever I want. So I'm going to start, well, we already showed France. We already showed Turkey. So let's come on over to Pakistan. And there was a 4.6 near Musa Khel Bazar, Pakistan at 1:52 this afternoon, 40 kilometers deep. Moving on around, here's one in the ocean, in the Andaman Sea, of 4.9 near Bamboo Flat, India at 3:27 this morning, 57 kilometers deep. Then in the Philippines was a 4.5 near Sarangani, Philippines at 2:32 this afternoon, 147 kilometers deep. Coming on down, there was a quite large one at Vanuatu. Quite large. It was in the ocean here, right in between all these little islands. A 6.3 near Luganville, Vanuatu. This happened at 8:23 this morning, and it was 119 kilometers deep. That caused some shaking. Then down here in Fiji, here was a 4.7 near Lombasa at 6:22 this morning, very deep, 494 kilometers deep. Next was 5.4 near Niaifu, Tonga at 12:03 this afternoon, and 4.8 near Hihifo, Tonga at 3:59 this afternoon. That one just came on the map, that's why it's red. Now, coming on up, was a 4.5 near Hibaru, Japan at 11:17 this morning, 9 kilometers deep. And that's it for the West Pacific. Now let's go to South America. We've got 4.4 near San Pedro de Atacama, Chile at 4:16 this morning, 128 kilometers deep. 4.6 near Lampa, Peru at 10:41 last night, 191 kilometers deep. Then a 5.1 in Ecuador, almost on the line there between Ecuador and Peru, It was a 5.1 at 9:23 this morning, 39 kilometers deep. Then in the Atlantic Ocean was a 5.0 right on this red line at northern mid-Atlantic Ridge at 12:13 this afternoon. Then down here in Mexico, just off the coast of El Salvador, was a 4.3 near La Libertad, El Salvador at 3:32 this afternoon, 35 kilometers deep. Now let's move on over to all magnitudes for Dominican Republic. We're showing 11 here today. I'll call them off. 3.0, 3.3, 2.9, 2.7, 1.9, 1.9, 2.0, 2.8, 1.6, 1.7, and 1.1. So those threes were in the ocean there, so even a 3 is not really big enough to cause damage, but you can feel shaking with that. Now over in Hawaii, in the last 24 hours, all those others have fallen off the map, and we're showing 2 here. The largest one was this 3.3 near Fern Acres at last night at 8:16 p.m., 6 kilometers deep. So that's getting on up there. And then a 2.5 near Honoka'a at 5:18 this morning, 30 kilometers deep. Moving on up into Alaska. We're showing 47 here today. Of those 47, let's look at the 2.5 magnitude and higher first. We've got a 3.8 near Akutan at 11:31 this morning. 3.3 near King Salmon at 11:23 this morning. Here in the Anchorage area, well, near Anchorage, 2.5 near Nikiski at 11:39. 3.7 near Willow at 12:44 this morning. 2.9 near Big Lake, that's in the Anchorage area, at 7:59 last night. 2.5 near Glen Allen at 12:14 this afternoon, and this one was pretty deep, 250 kilometers deep. 2.5 near Tok, Alaska at 6:11 last night at a 0.1 kilometers depth. It's very shallow there. Then up here at Kobuk was a 2.6 at 4:04 this afternoon at 0 kilometers depth. And at Kuktovik we had a 2.5 at 1:13 this afternoon, 0 kilometers depth, and 3.8 at 12:19 this morning at 0.2 kilometers depth. So let's go back and look in a little more detail at Alaska with the smaller earthquakes in mind. Here's a 2.2 at King Salmon. And here we had that 3.3. So we're seeing them in pairs again. Here's a 2.3 near Anchor Point, 1.3 near Redoubt Volcano. Those are right there together. 1.4 Coho, 1.5 Kenai. And see, here's another pair. Here's a 1.5 Nikiski, 1.6 Nikiski, and so on. Anchorage doesn't have many here today. Just a few right there. So they've kind of spread out around. Here's this Cape Yakataga. So we've got a 2.2 there, a 1.9 there, 1.5, 2.2, 1.8, and so forth. So they're in high 1s to low 2 ranges, 2.5 and so forth. And we're seeing little clusters, like here's a cluster of 4 near Healy. All 2 of them were at 0 kilometers depth, and so on. So up here at Kobuk was a smaller one, a 1.5. And then up here at Koktovit we had 2 smaller ones, a 1.9 and a 2.2. That was at 0 kilometers depth. So these shallow ones interest me. So now let's move down into the lower 48. Down here in Baja, we're showing a 2.3 near Miniadero, Baja, at 10:29 last night. Then there was a 3.1 near Pecos, Texas at 1:22 this afternoon. Coming on up into Utah, we've got 13 on the map here today. I didn't mean to do that. Here's a 2.4 near Fillmore, 0.9 near Farron. Let's look at this cluster here. Gunnison, we've got 4 here. We've got a 1.8, 2.3, 1.6, and 1.6. Moving on across, here's a cluster at East Carbon City of 5. And these are all at a negative depth. Negative depth. 1, 2, 3, 4 of them were at minus 3.4 kilometers deep, and the last one was at a minus 1.4 kilometers deep. So I'll call them off. 1.4, 1.4, 1.2, 1.9, and 1.7. And then up here, just south of Salt Lake at Bluffdale, there were 2. There was a 1.6 and a 1.3. Then north of Salt Lake City was a 1.0 near Garland at 2:27 this afternoon. Now we're going to move on up into the Yellowstone area. On the way, there's a 1.1 near Malad City, Idaho at 4:07 this morning. Shallow, 1 kilometers deep. Here's a 1.4 near South Park, Wyoming, last night at 9:05 p.m. got that. Coming on up, we've got two clusters here. The first cluster is at Manhattan, Montana, 1.3, 0.8, and 1.0. And then the other cluster is right here. We're showing 4 here near Lincoln, Montana, a 1.0, 1.0, 1.0, and 2.3. Now moving on around to the Pacific Northwest, we're showing 2 in the Washington area. We're showing a 1.0 near Long Branch and a 1.5 near Big Lake. So there's those. Nothing showing up in Oregon. Now here's this big one sticking out here in Nevada. This is a 3.3, and they're showing it 38 kilometers south-southeast of Winnemucca. And really, Winnemucca is literally in the middle of nowhere. There's some mountains out there, but it's like desert and mountains. I've been there a couple of times. It is in the middle of nowhere. And this came in at 7:51 this morning, 7 kilometers deep. 3.5. So it looks like it's in that mountain there. And Winnemucca is right up here. So we don't normally see them there. So I just had to point that out first. Now we'll go on and finish up Nevada. We've got 5 in the Hawthorne area. They're all under 1. We've got this cluster at Goldfield again. We've got 6 at Goldfield. They're all in the 1s range, low 1s. Something's going on there. They do a lot of mining. And then we got some small ones coming in southern Nevada. Here's a 0.8 near Alamo and a minus 0.5 near Beatty. But the biggest one by far that we've seen in Nevada in a long time is this 3.3 right there. So let's move on over past the Reno area, and we're showing 3 near Truckee. It's actually here, well, it's north of Truckee in the mountains there. 1.0, 0.5, and a minus 0.1. So those are pretty small, but it's showing movement. And then we got 2 at Cold Springs, 0.4 and a 0.8. And then coming on up in northern California, a 1.8 near Susanville. That one happened at 1:10 this morning. Then coming on up, here's one to the northeast of Redding, California, a 1.7 near Bella Vista at 8:25 this morning. And now moving on down to the geysers region, we're showing 31 here today, including this 1.2 near Cloverdale that just came in at 4:11. So of those, let's see if any of those are 2.5 magnitude or higher. No, they are not. We've got 2 down there that are 2.5 magnitude or higher. So these are all 1s and under, it looks like. So that's very active. Coming on down, San Francisco's clear. Okay, here is one in this little lake. 1.2 near Los Baños. And 1.5 near Tres Pinos. Moving on down along the San Andreas fault line, it's pretty quiet. Here's a blast, 1.1 magnitude quarry blast near Lebec at 1:01 this afternoon at a minus 1.5 kilometers depth. Here's a 2.2 earthquake at Lake Hughes, California. Here's a 2.1 near San Pedro, just off the coast near Long Beach in the ocean there. This one came in last night or yesterday at 5:34 p.m. So we saw that 2.2. So in Southern California, oh, here's another quarry blast, a 1.3 near Santee at 1 o'clock this afternoon at a minus 0.1 kilometers depth. So in Southern California, we're showing 37 here today. So let's see what's 2.5 magnitude or higher. 2.5 near Little Lake, 3.2 Coso Junction. So we'll get into that next. So here's the Kauai cluster and here's the Anza cluster. See, all those just now coming in. 3 right there. So those are pretty standard. Now coming on up to this area, 0.8 at Kernville. Here's this 2.5 at Little Lake. And at Coso Junction, we've got 28 all stacked up here today. So how big was that one? 3.2. So the 3.2 was the largest one out of 28 here. So starting, they've just been going for days. I mean, every few minutes or hour or so for days now. So this is from 5:08 last night, starting with a 0.5 and then coming on through. Here's one that's really shallow, a 0.2 kilometer depth. That was the 3.2. So that one was very shallow, a 0.2 kilometers depth. That happened at 5:06 this morning. And then they go back to under ones and ones. And then the last one on the map here is a 1.4 that came in at 4:11 this afternoon. So those, it's rocking down there. What can I say? It's just rocking away. Here's a 1.8 near Yosemite Lakes at 10:56 this morning. Here's in the Mammoth Lake area. We've got 6 here, a 1.2, 0.7, 1.4, 0.4, 0.5, and 1.4 at West Bishop, California. Coming on up, and I think that's a wrap. Here's a new one, just came in at 1.8 near Pinnacles at 5:08. So we'll zoom out. Uh-oh, here's a new one. This one just came in. A 4.3 near Phalam, Burma at 4:37 this afternoon, 30 kilometers deep, right on that red line. So I showed that, I showed Kobuk, I showed Tonga, I showed all of those. So that's a wrap, folks. So that's it for today. I love all of you very much. I do believe time is short, and we need to get our spiritual houses in order while we still have time, because no one knows the day or the hour, and we're all experiencing the effects of the climate falling apart, the world becoming more toxic, our bodies can't heal the way they used to could. We're seeing a lot of low-lying chronic conditions, and we're going to be seeing those just increasing, and energy levels going down as the air quality gets worse and worse, and the food, is not real food, and you're just not getting the nutrients and stuff. So I'm feeling it. I'm just dragging. So my heart goes out to everyone. So I love you guys. So until next time, God bless you. Go in peace, and goodbye.